You've probably heard it 1,000 times. Your empathy is a superpower, a gift. It's what makes you a great friend, a caring partner, and a decent human being. It's praised in magazines, in leadership seminars, and self-help books. But what if that superpower has a hidden, crushing cost? What if the bill for all that caring is quietly being charged to your mental health, your career, and even your bank account? If you've ever felt drained, overlooked, or just plain taken for granted because you feel like you care too much, you're in the right place. Because today we're pulling back the curtain on the price of empathy and breaking down all the hidden costs that come with feeling everything all the time. To get why empathy can be so draining, we first have to understand what it's actually asking our brains to do. We tend to think of empathy as a soft, fuzzy feeling that just happens, but neurologically, it's surprisingly hard work. In fact, there's a whole area of research built around something called the motivated empathy perspective, which suggests that empathy is so cognitively taxing that people will often choose to avoid it if they can. It's not because they're bad people, it's because our brains are wired to conserve energy. Think of your brain as running on a tight budget of mental resources. Every single task, from solving a puzzle to figuring out what to eat for dinner, makes a withdrawal. Empathy, it turns out, can be one of the most expensive transactions you make. It requires you to do something called perspective taking, which is a fancy way of saying you have to quiet your own point of view, try to simulate someone else's, and process their emotions, all while managing your own. This whole process leans heavily on our executive functions, the same part of our brain we use for focus, memory, and making decisions. This is why our brains are constantly running a subtle cost-benefit analysis. When we're faced with someone else's suffering, especially if it's a large, overwhelming problem, the sheer amount of information can feel distressing and exhausting. So sometimes, without even realizing it, we might opt for a little objectivity instead of deep emotional engagement. It's not that we don't care, it's that our brains recognize the cognitive price is just too high. It's like being a sponge. At first, absorbing someone's sorrow feels connecting, but after a while you can get so waterlogged with secondhand stress that you have nothing left for yourself. That feeling isn't a personal failure, it's your brain's processing power hitting its limit. This constant mental workout can snowball into something much more serious, a state professionals call compassion fatigue. It's the profound emotional and physical exhaustion that comes from absorbing the distress of others over and over without a real chance to recover. It's that slow fade from feeling deeply to feeling nothing at all. You see this a lot in caring professions like nursing and therapy, where rates of compassion fatigue can be incredibly high. But with the 24/7 news cycle and our social media feeds flooded with trauma, it's a condition that more and more of us are at risk for just by living in the modern world. The symptoms can be sneaky at first. Let's break them down. First, the emotional toll. This is where you start feeling a deep, nagging sense of exhaustion. You might get irritable over little things that never used to bug you. A sense of detachment can creep in, where you feel like you're watching the world from behind a pane of glass. For some, it becomes a profound numbness, where it's hard to feel joy or sadness or anything really. You might even start to feel resentful toward the very people you're trying to help. Does any of that sound familiar? Waking up tired, not from a lack of sleep, but because you spent the day fighting someone else's emotional battles? Second, the physical price. The mind-body connection is real, and compassion fatigue proves it. Chronic fatigue is one of the most common signs, a weariness that feels bone deep, that no amount of coffee or sleep can fix. You might get more headaches, muscle tension, or find your sleep is a mess. Your body literally starts to pay for the emotional weight you're carrying. In fact, studies on parents have found that while being an empathetic parent is linked to greater self-esteem, it's also linked to higher markers of systemic inflammation in their bodies, suggesting a real physiological cost. Now, if you've been nodding along and recognizing yourself in this, do me a favor and hit that like button. More importantly, share your experience in the comments. You are so not alone in this, and your story might be the one thing that helps someone else finally feel seen. The price of empathy doesn't just stop with your health. It can follow you to work and hit you right in the wallet. In the business world, empathy is a huge buzzword, but it's often used in a way that benefits the bottom line, not the individual. Take empathy marketing. Companies spend a fortune trying to understand your deepest fears, hopes, and insecurities. They use that understanding to craft messages that connect with you emotionally, building a sense of trust. Dove's Real Beauty campaign is a perfect example. It tapped into the real frustration women felt about beauty standards and built incredible brand loyalty. But that's a double-edged sword. While some brands use empathy to make a genuine connection, others use it to manipulate. They create a false sense of urgency, play on your insecurities, or make you feel like you belong, all to nudge you toward a purchase. They know if they can make you feel understood, you're much more likely to open your wallet. Your natural human need for connection gets monetized, but it's not just what you buy, it's also about what you earn. At work, being the empathy person can actually hold you back. If you're overusing it, you might prioritize team harmony over healthy, productive conflict. You might agonize over tough decisions because you're worried about how everyone will feel. You become the unofficial office therapist, soaking up everyone's stress, which leaves you too drained to focus on your own work and goals. And this often leads to being passed over for promotions. While you're busy making sure everyone feels heard and supported, other people are making the bold, decisive moves that get them noticed. The most effective leaders don't lack empathy, but they practice what's called strategic empathy, the ability to understand emotions without getting consumed by them. It's what allows them to make clear, pragmatic decisions. And when it's time to negotiate a raise, being highly empathetic can make it tough to advocate for yourself. You might accept a lower salary because you understand the company's budget, or take on a mountain of extra work because you can see how stressed your boss is. You go to bat for everyone but yourself, and in the end, your superpower can leave you underpaid and overworked. So if unchecked empathy is a liability, is the answer to just stop caring? To become a heartless robot? Absolutely not. The solution isn't to build walls, it's to install gates. It's about shifting from draining, all-consuming empathy to something more sustainable. The key is learning to distinguish between empathy and compassion. Think of it this way. Empathy is feeling with someone. You're in the hole with them, feeling their pain. Compassion is feeling for them, which sparks a desire to help from a more stable place. You're not in the hole, you're throwing them a rope. See ya. This isn't just semantics. Neuroscientists have seen this in the brain. Research shows that raw empathy can activate the same brain networks associated with experiencing pain yourself. But when people are trained to focus on compassion, it activates different brain networks, ones associated with positive feelings, motivation, and reward. This small mental shift can move you from passively absorbing distress to actively offering support, which feels energizing instead of draining. Here are a few ways to practice this. First, set firm emotional boundaries. You have to recognize that you are not personally responsible for fixing everyone's emotions. A simple technique is visualization. Before walking into a stressful meeting or a tough conversation, imagine a protective bubble of light around you. It's not about blocking people out, it's about filtering the emotional static you allow in. You can listen and understand without having to absorb all the anxiety in the room. Second, budget your empathy. Just like your money, your empathetic energy is a finite resource. You simply can't afford to give it away to every person, every tragic news story, or every online argument. Be intentional. Decide who and what is truly worthy of your deepest emotional investment. For everything else, you can offer kindness and understanding, but conserve your core energy. That's not selfish, it's sustainable. The story we're usually told about empathy is pretty one-sided. We hear about the virtue, but not the cost. The truth is, like any real power, it comes with a price. It can drain your cognitive battery, lead to serious burnout, and can even be used against you. But understanding the price doesn't mean you should get rid of your gift. It means you have to learn how to manage it. Your empathy is valuable, but it's not endless. By practicing clear boundaries, budgeting your energy, and learning to shift from just feeling with someone to acting with compassion for them, you can learn to care intelligently. You can protect your own humanity while still showing up for others. So, the next time someone tells you your empathy is a superpower, you can agree. But now you'll know that every superpower requires training, discipline, and most of all, a healthy dose of self-preservation. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you think about empathy in a new way, subscribe for more content that challenges how we see ourselves in the world. Until next time, take care of yourself.